Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Infinite Chains podcast. I'm Jack O'Halloran, co-founder of Scale Labs. We're the core team behind the Scale network. We have an amazing guest here today, getting ready to talk blockchain gaming. We're going to talk about ideas. We're going to talk about where gaming is going. We're also going to learn more about what I think is one of the most dynamic, fast-paced games out there that has also one of the most dynamic, fast-paced community engagement models. So Philip Devine, welcome.
Hey everyone, yeah, thanks for having me on, Jack.
So hey, let's just start. A lot of people, please introduce yourself. A lot of people probably and would like to hear more about Cryptoblades as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm the CEO of Riveted Games, the developer of Cryptoblades. Going way back, my company started developing games for mostly PC and released on Steam as well as self-published. That started in roughly 2014. And then towards the end of 2020, we moved into blockchain gaming and released Cryptoblades in roughly June of 2021. And since then, we have deployed out to 8 different smart chains. Most recently, the Skale network, where we have our own application sidechain, which has been really, really huge for us. I think we have roughly around 45,000 monthly active users and 15 to 20,000 residing just on Skale. And so outside of that, we also have a variety of different GameFi services that we developed for ourselves and now are making available to other projects like NFT bridging and cross-chain NFT marketplace and things like that. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that I think makes your team really unique is I see either people who are like they just entirely crypto native and they're trying to learn gaming. Other people are, gaming people who don't know anything about blockchain, and now they're trying to figure out how to integrate NFTs or different crypto assets. And your team really is this like best of both worlds. And you started in gaming, which I think you have to do to get that gaming foundation. But maybe talk a little bit about your team and kind of what drove you to build this.
Yeah, I would say we kind of oscillate between those two camps in a way where we certainly don't have it all down and sometimes lean too much blockchainy and sometimes lean like too much gamey. But it's finding that middle ground here and kind of just almost using that to sort of like triangulate that sweet spot for blockchain gaming. But one of the reasons that we moved into this space was coming from like an indie studio background, right? We're not like your EA and Ubisoft and all that. We made experimental games like pretty much exclusively. And when I saw in roughly 2020 that NFTs were kind of being utilized in some gamified ways, but mostly it was this like underground artist community that was really latching onto it, and they were making different kinds of generative art. They were making like AI art, and kind of that initial sort of technophile that is also very artistic in this kind of this combination of those. And I thought that was pretty cool, and also that wasn't like something I personally was passionate about, and it more showed me like, okay, they're kind of taking NFTs and using them how they think might be cool as a medium for their art, for example. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, how would that look with just using the blockchain medium as for games, and what are the benefits there? And so as I started researching it, I started kind of putting the pieces together like, wow, this is a way for you to sort of wrap any kind of data into an ownable little package. And so what if the characters in our next game were existing as NFTs, and those could then be actually ownable by the users? Like we don't even have to do anything or there's no like centralized entity that's saying like this user is selling things on the black market, let's ban them or whatever. Like it's like with World of Warcraft, for example, where if you are buying and farming gold and then you're selling that, like that's outside the terms of service. And so they're going to, if they find out, then the character or the account that you've spent that time on, they're gonna nail you for it. And what I think people are realizing more and more now, especially with like subscription services and things like that, is we don't really own any of our data anymore. I mean, you at the very least used to own the CD or cassette for a game that you purchased, and then you could give that to your friends. And then DRM came around, and it's just been this really, really backwards trajectory for the ownership of data. And so while that wasn't the area that I focused on initially, it's something that I realized the gaming industry needs in particular. And now I'm much more of a proponent of this technology and have since gone all in on it since kind of making that realization. And with that realization, my feeling that it's inevitable for really the user base to start demanding that their digital assets reside as NFTs, demanding this of the companies that they're going to be paying their money to play these games. Like, look, I don't want to give you my money if I'm not going to own what I have and be able to do what I want with it. And so that's why I am particularly interested in sort of even all the different features we have are all different kinds of experiments of how will users like interact with this particular protocol with their NFT. And so yeah, that's kind of where we're at now, is maybe starting to move out of the experimental phase, but definitely still continuing to try new things and see how they work out, and kind of you set a hypothesis and then have it kind of blown away when you see how users end up actually using it. But yeah, we're still very, very early in this, and I'm really excited to just see what else we can come up with and what else the rest of the builders out there can come up with.
Yeah, it's literally the tip of the iceberg. And one of the interesting things is there's so much talk about like Metaverse and NFTs and the utility of NFTs and like it's coming. And the reality is it already is happening in gaming. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Cryptoblades, and can you talk a little bit about that? Like, talk about how this is a metaverse and how, and go a little deeper into NFTs. I know a lot of people are, it's very just like, not real. It's intangible still, but we have it in a tangible state. So please educate the listeners.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I even hope that we can even come up with some new terminology in the future for NFTs, because it's just this nebulous kind of name. Like, yes, it's like technically correct, but even the word fungible, like that's not a word that was part of the normal language of people prior to NFTs. So what does it mean that something's non-fungible? Most people don't even know what something that's fungible is, right? And so, I more kind of talk about them and think about them as just ownable digital assets, right? Like even with Napster, back in the 90s, you're downloading music and you're seeing commercials like, you wouldn't download a car or you wouldn't steal a car, right? Like all these like really weird kind of copyright sort of analogies. And yet we have Napster where, I can go and download whatever song or video or movie or whatever. And at that time, it was kind of freeing in a way for everyone who was participating in it, and it was a real nightmare for the publishers and for the artists who are like, I'm not like, hey, I thought you guys were in charge of like helping us make money from this music, and now everyone's listening to it for free. And so what did we see? We started to see that what ended up where the businesses ended up kind of landing is somewhere in the middle. Like, what do they want? They want to be able to listen to their music way easier, and they don't want to get charged an arm and a leg, because most people consume music in, the thousands of different songs per month, and no one's going to spend thousands of dollars per month on new music. So that model has to change. And so the businesses started to work on things like streaming, and, now we can listen to as much music as we want, and we have a flat fee that we pay, right? And what I'm seeing with, especially in the gaming industry with respect to DRM or digital rights in general, is people are getting just really killed on the monetization strategies to enjoy the products that they used to love or even still love, but maybe can't even afford, because we've gone from this era of pay $50-$60 and you have the game and you can play it as much as you want, and it's the full game, and they're even going to distribute updates to you and things like that. And then we went kind of down the rabbit hole to having what is it downloadable packs or DLC, and And now in order to get the full game, you have to, actually pay like $150 to buy all of the DLC for the game. And then that kind of turned into microtransactions, where now if you want to go to level 30, you have to pay 99 cents. And like, it's just all of these different ways that that because we don't own the game, we don't own our own data, there can be any and all kinds of gatekeeping around that. And I think, the initial example of World of Warcraft really can be applied to almost anything. Like the what it sort of boils down to is, when you're done with it, you should be able to sell it to somebody else, like eBay,
Yeah.
And or if you want to get a head start, or if you want to if you just want to, hey, I have these Cryptoblades characters, but I want to have a whole nother team because I want to be doing raids and things like that. And okay, you can buy that from somebody, and we don't have to participate in that transaction whatsoever. You can just freely be able to do that. And I think that that's sort of the game itself is very, very, very basic, like back to even the mud days, basically. And a lot of that is because the entire server backend is blockchain, and we're still in the dial-up phase of blockchain, where it's like, if where you can't be on the phone at the same time as someone being on the internet, kind of thing, and it's slow and it's expensive, and so the game itself is kind of acting within those boundaries. Like, how many fun experiences can we make within that? And so all that is to say, the NFTs really are just assets that you can actually own and have a little bit more freedom with, and possibly even have some monetary value if someone out there is willing to pay you some money for it. That's really all it is from a technology standpoint.
It kind of reminds me of this, like when I first started working in tech in 2005, and back then still people would say, oh, there's internet companies, and then there's other industries, right? And then they were like, now there's medical technology and construction technology and, healthcare technology and, financial technology. And then eventually the technology and the internet thing just went away, and every single industry just is a tech company in itself of the zone they're living in. And we had all these like really kind of burdensome modifiers, using these words that aren't part of the typical vernacular. And so, yes, NFTs, like, most people don't even know what fungible means in in a real sense. Okay.
Right.
You don't think about it as like, okay, here's a token and there's another set of tokens, and these ones are like intermingled. These ones are like just fixed assets. And, and so, yeah, we're just so early, but eventually I do agree that like, we're going to quit calling things NFTs because they're all going to be NFTs.
Right.
And it's just like, oh, okay, well, in this sort of like, whatever termed asset, yes, this is used for gameplay. This is used for, like copyright and IP of music, or this is used for, gated, it's your ticket to get in, it's your club membership, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, that's a really great point. Now, in terms of gaming, like I'd love to, by the way, I'm like just holding back to just get into the second piece here, because I'm so pumped to hear about it. But before we do that, if you could just like, tell me a little bit more about the game. Like, tell me about the game and tell me about your vision. Like, what are you building towards? Because you are building, like, you have a second game launching, and there's so much happening. I just want to hear I want to hear more about Cryptoblades and Riveted right now, and then we're going to go like crazy off the cuff and talk about the future of gaming.
Yeah, definitely. So Cryptoblades started off as a fairly basic play to earn or even click to earn kind of game, where you can buy an NFT, you can buy a Cryptoblade, which also exists as an NFT, and then go find monsters and defeat them. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. If you win, you get some skill tokens or a variety of other tokens too. And what we kind of have built since that initial like version 0.1 is, and we call it phase 9 because it's kind of like, we don't necessarily have a strict release version, but if the very first one was, Cryptoblades version 0.1, like now we're at, 9.0. Like, we've just had so much development within the ecosystem that it's entirely more than just a single play to earn game. It's that it's a platform that Cryptoblades resides on, and many other games can reside on it too. And it's just a variety of different incentivized sort of gameplay elements that you can use any kind of NFT or any kind of token to participate in. So, for example, we have raids, which is essentially like staking your NFTs to win kind of like a raffle, right? There's a raid boss, and everyone can join. And once the raid is completed, in I think roughly 16 hours later, then everyone kind of gets distributed certain rewards, whether it's NFTs or tokens. It can really be any variety of things. And any project could even set something up with raids where they can go against their own raid boss and they can have their own NFTs distributed, right? And why is staking important? Well, it keeps them more, it gives utility for the NFTs, and it also adds in an additional sort of incentivization to hold, right? If you're staking the NFT, like we could very well make it 16 weeks if we wanted to for some really crazy great rewards. We also have a quest system, which is your typical find and retrieve quest from, for example, World of Warcraft. And in our case, it's go find these NFTs from anywhere on any blockchain, bring them back, and we'll give you some Cryptoblades rewards for it. And what we can use that for is working with other partner projects to say, go there, find it. If you're a Cryptoblades player, great. Or if you're one of the people from that other ecosystem and you've never even played Cryptoblades before, maybe this is a good time to start because you're going to get some Cryptoblades NFTs as a result of it. But we can also just as easily reward people with other kinds of project tokens and sort of use this as just another tool to go out and help cross-pollinate with other NFT holders from all different kinds of projects.
By the way, quick question. When you think of new players, I know like traditional gaming, I spent a lot of time just studying gameplay back when I was actually an enterprise software entrepreneur building, products for B2B users. And but what I realized is the best people in the world at, user experience and like getting people to use things. In an enterprise, it's great because people are forced to use these products. So most of them suck. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's true.
Our belief was, hey, let's create products people actually want to use, and they'll pay even more for them, and they'll provide more value. And but anyways, I started learning about gaming UX. And so how do you think about that when you think about like onboarding new gamers and like, because there's different kind of clicks and loops and you can incentivization methods when you have new tools, you have a new arsenal with like NFTs and tokens. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny because our seamlessness and even fun of our platform sometimes takes away from the people understanding like what the underlying technology and purpose is. And so by that, I mean, because this all started out as a game, everything is completely themed for Cryptoblades, and it's the weapons and things that you earn have like more of like an emotional value or a coolness factor or a fun factor. And like take the example of raid, that could very easily just be a standard, orange and blue color palette screen that says stake your NFT, get this number APY or something like that, right? Yeah. It could be just like that because that's technically all it is. But what do we have? We have raid bosses, and we have like all of these, stats and numbers, and everything that you win and earn is all part of the game that you can use in other parts of the platform. And so, because of that, we have people essentially, testing and giving us valuable information about the sort of psychology of how people use our platform. And we use that then to either improve the features that we have or say, hey, look, a lot of people are, earning Cryptoblades from raids. We should try to keep the volume of NFTs down, and maybe we should add a burning mechanics. Then we start allowing people to burn NFTs through the quest system, and then people burned like over 100,000 NFTs, and then we started to recover. Like, so it's just because it's sort of game first in a way from the user experience side of things. It makes it so much easier to get people to sort of test the actual underlying technology that we're building, and is one of the reasons that when we go to other projects, we can say like, look, this is how our players used it, and we expect that you guys would have similar results. And
well, let's talk about that for a second, because that's another like very cool thing that I'm seeing with Cryptoblades is that not only do you have this like phenomenal game, but you have infrastructure. There are people, and I love this. So I think we started talking to you guys, and then just like not like, years or months later, but like weeks. We're because of the beauty of Ethereum and all this pluggable open source interoperability, and then like some amazing engineering with your team, with the Scale community, like literally in weeks you were able to bridge over from Binance Smart Chain as a test, as an experiment. And I think there were 90,000 NFTs brought over in like 48 hours or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, but you've built infrastructure as well. So you don't just have a game, you also have tools. Like, could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So the tools are, some of them go hand in hand with the features of the game, as I mentioned, but then we also have our NFT bridge, which has been in operation since for about 9 months now, and that connects currently 8 different smart chains. So that's BNB Chain, Polygon, Avalanche, Aurora EVM, Hiko, OEC, Kava, and of course now Scale. And that is for specifically GameFi projects or projects that have more metadata than your standard ERC 721 interface. So meaning it's not just an image, it has like a lot of other properties to it, and that's typical of GameFi NFTs. And so the idea was, well, let's create something really flexible. That way, any of our existing NFTs and any of our future NFTs can easily be supported. And what that means is like, the technology doesn't know if this belongs to Cryptoblades or not, right? It very well could be any other NFT. And so we're starting to onboard other projects to be able to give them just the mobility, right? Whether it's for getting away from volatile gas prices like on Polygon, or volatile performance on Polygon, or whether it's higher gas prices on BNB chain than elsewhere. It just gives people the opportunity and the mobility. That way they're not putting all their eggs kind of in that one smart chain basket. And then we also have our NFT marketplace, which is cross-chain across all the chains that I mentioned, and also has the ability to do like INOs. And then we have our Launchpad, which we're actually launching our first project in 2 weeks. And the really sort of cool thing about that is instead of just having these for those of you who don't really know that much about Launchpads, essentially it's kind of like a pay-to-play kind of thing. You buy a ton of dollars worth of, maybe $1,000 worth of a certain Launchpad token, so that you can then purchase public sale tokens at a kind of pre-IPO or pre-IDO price. And in our case, many of our players are not like made of money. A lot of them are from more like lower income geographies, and so it actually, what we've done is if you sort of store up the earnings from Cryptoblades, then you can also participate in these Launchpads with like nano allocations. And so the benefit there to other projects is that they could launch their tokens, and then if they're like a GameFi project, they're not only selling to speculators, they're actually selling to other play-to-earn gamers, and a significant amount of them. So maybe even upwards of like 30,000 participants. So those are a couple of like the different services and infrastructure kind of things that we've been working on.
Yeah, really, it's really, really cool. And I mean, it makes a ton of sense too. And this is like, I mean, you look at Amazon, right? They built up this like all this infrastructure because they're selling books. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
AWS is like dwarfs the book sales. But they built infrastructure and they did it in a productized manner. And if you have a product-driven team, you can productize features and also make them extensible to other people. So super smart. I love that you guys are doing that. And also, hey, I was pumped to see all of the, there weren't even like real super strong incentives other than like the gas-free element. But, we had some programs, or the Scale Sword, but a lot of the big programs I think still are to launch between Scale and Cryptoblades. But it was just amazing to see all the users come over. We love that.
Yeah, it's I mean, that speaks specifically for the need for gas-free in the GameFi space, especially with relation to projects that are very layer one heavy like ours. And it blew me away too, right? Like, we kind of set hypotheses and we set goals, and I think I told Connor and the team like I think it would be really great if we can get like 5,000 players on here or something. Mm-hmm. And, like just as like the initial sort of soft launch, and like what he's like, like 90,000 NFTs later. And I think, at least 15,000 players later, it's like, we're still going, and we still have so much more that we, have planned and kind of in our back pocket, which is just, it's really cool. But like I said, it speaks a lot for, the community response to that gas-free smart chain option.
Awesome, awesome. And so let's talk a little bit about. So there's a second game launching. For those that are watching on YouTube, and if you're not watching on YouTube, there'll be a link to see this on YouTube later. Philip will be showing a demo and a little some teaser action of the new game that's also running on in a Scale test environment. But could you have anything you want to say to people listening that might want to know what's coming?
Yeah, definitely. So Cryptoblades Kingdoms is like a sister product to Cryptoblades, and it's a much more interactive experience where people can sit and play it like pretty much all day if they wanted to. And the other cool thing about it is it does have interoperability with our existing Cryptoblades game, where you can take your characters from Cryptoblades and import them as generals in Cryptoblades Kingdoms. But yeah, on top of that, it's a completely new genre of game. It fits more into sort of like the tribal wars kind of idle games, where you can sit and play it in your browser and number go up, and hopefully no one attacks you while you're sleeping and steals all your resources, kind of thing. But yeah, so we do have a beta for that, and I'll show a little bit about that later as well.
Okay, awesome. Now, hey, let's talk about gaming. So one thing that I like, I'll give you like my kind of hypothesis of what's happening, and then love to hear you'll go way deeper. So,
Sure.
and Paul Graham, an amazing founder and founder of Y Combinator, he has a great quote that says, it was actually a blog post, but it's like, what happens when the experts were wrong? Because there's always the experts, right? And then sometimes they're just wrong, and people are like, what? And it's because, as he says, it's like they're experts in a prior version of the world. And this was like, I saw this in enterprise. There's like people who are such experts, and then all of a sudden there's disruption, and like, what happened? And it's like, well, they were experts in the prior version, not the new version. And I think that gaming is like, gaming has experts, and these experts are very opinionated, and they know the right ways for viral loops, the right ways to do user onboarding and like tickle the dopamine and to get people playing and to like suss out your whales. There's this whole library of information that they have built their careers on. And then you go to GameFi, and all of a sudden you're like, it's like steroids for user retention and for like, engagement and like, the emotional attachment of owning the NFT. You actually own the thing. And so that prior world still plays a huge role in the new world, but it's a new world. And so the rules are different. We're even just still learning these, right? And so I have a feeling, a lot of traditional blockchain game people or a lot of traditional gaming people loathe blockchain gaming, because I think they feel a little insecure about like this thing happening, and it's not, observing the religion of their, that they've developed over time. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are. And I mean, I think that's all going to come together someday. And these, people like, oh, you mean game people didn't like blockchain? Like, we're 5 to 10 years away, and that will be the case. But, until then, we've got some friction, and just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. So it harkens back, I think, a really prime example of that this has sort of already happened once before, probably many times before. But when free-to-play games came out, which really was the early 90s, but probably was more prevalent with like the Facebook genre of games, like the very first Farmville and things like that, right? Where you could play for free, and there were all these other sort of microtransactions. And then word started coming out about how much money they're making. And what was the gaming world's response? It wasn't like, wow, this is the future of gaming. It was, this is total shit. They're scamming all of these grandmas, out of their money. It's like, it was very toxic for sure. Like,
they must have hated Candy Crush, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like exactly. It's like especially like the gaming press and sort of the, as you're talking about, right? The experts were at the time very much opposed, and now like everybody plays some free-to-play game that has some kind of freemium element, right? There's just like so many of them out there from all of the biggest names in gaming. Like every game studio has some kind of free-to-play game, and we're certainly seeing some very similar kind of tropes and some similar responses to blockchain gaming by sort of this is new, so I'm going to be extremely critical, and I'm going to scrutinize like every negative aspect of it, which is also helpful, I think. It's just when it comes down to sort of the way that people simplistically go, black and white on things and not necessarily gray, is when you start to see things like, article after article talking about how all blockchain games are a scam, or how all blockchain games are killing the environment, or all blockchain games are just rug pulls, and someone just trying to make a ton of money and then hit the road. And some of those things have happened. So that's one of the challenging parts about addressing it, is you can't necessarily say you're absolutely wrong, because there are certain concerns with it. There have been rug pulls, there have been huge money grabs, all kinds of things. And those things happen in traditional gaming too. Like you have the No Man's Sky, which was like, they're on like the late night show, talking about their multiplayer, and then all of a sudden, they have a game without any multiplayer at launch, and the 1 in quintillion chance of ever seeing another player, it happens on day one, and like there's like it's like all kinds of stuff. So
the free markets are more it's like, I don't want to say double-edged sword, but like the positive part of the sword is like you own these assets and nobody can stop you from selling them. The negative side is if there's not a buyer on the other side, then there's going to be volatility. And and so these are not like people are playing, but these things will go up and down, and they are affected by macro forces. These microeconomies, everyone's like, Axie, what shit? Like, just, it's a Ponzi. And it's like, the reality is it's a play to earn game. And when Bitcoin drops and all the, and like Three Arrows Capital, goes down, and like Terra Terra goes down, like, guess what? That impacts microeconomies of games, even, because they're all connected, because it's not just game players or speculators that are buying assets that are, but it's, the cool thing is no one's in charge of it.
Right.
Like, and as long as there's an education at some point, everybody knows if you're dealing with crypto, this stuff is volatile. And so, yeah, I just think that stuff's garbage. This stuff is it's the same thing. What if you spend like years of your life, playing World of Warcraft, and then they come in and they just, instead of the market impacting your liquidity, they just take it from you, which is why we have Ethereum, right? That's why Vitalik started Ethereum,
right,
to make that not happen.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so, it's, what we're seeing is, I think, definitely a piece of it is there being resistance to sort of a drastic foundational change that is happening in the gaming space. By introducing blockchain into it, by introducing real money into it, and transferability, and all those kinds of things. And then you have the learning curve too, of this is a completely new space. Like, we don't really know how to make games. There's no manual on how to make blockchain games, right? We're like writing it right now, everybody who's trying, and the data is still being collected, and everything is still continuing to improve. And we've had huge ups and huge downs with Cryptoblades as well. Like, so it's so I'm confident that it's a matter of time. In fact, some positive elements to the conversation. So GDC, the convention last year, had, half of the show floor was blockchain games.
Yeah, wasn't that? Yeah. So this is all positive, by the way. It's just there's like, some negative people out there, and they're on the wrong side of history. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's I think there's going to take some
awesome,
gentle.
right? Half of GDC. I went there, and it was amazing. It was Skale will be there representing next year.
Awesome. Well, maybe we'll be joining you guys there as well. And then even at we were speaking with our friends at Ryu Games. They're making a kind of a Steam for Web3. In fact, they have the founder of Steam, Rick Ellis, on their team as chief product officer. And we had a conversation I guess it was a few days ago, and one of their staff members was at Gamescom, which is like one of the largest gaming conventions in the world, and constantly sort of fielding some of these questions and concerns, and even having some people like, oh yeah, we're in crypto gaming, and it's like, oh well, isn't that just a scam? Like, very bold opinions on it.
And if that's your take, like you're just so wrong. It's just like people when in 2017 is when I left enterprise software, and I'd been, well-known, successful founder. And then I, starting a new company, and I told people I'm starting something in blockchain. They're like, you're throwing your career away. These are all just scams, these token things. I was like, no, there's a technology here. The next version of the internet, the next applications, all these areas, and people thought it was nuts. And so it's nice when they're like, the attack is, it's like when people are like, Bitcoin sucks because it's for drug money and mobsters, and they're like, okay, that's such a poor argument that if that's the best you have, then and so when I hear that about gaming, I'm like, all right, like if people are like, have other ideas, I'd love to listen to them, but I haven't seen any like really strong arguments other than a lot of fear.
Right. Yeah. Even that same argument about, where did this Bitcoin come from, was sort of put out by Gabe Newell when they made kind of an official stance on NFTs in their games, that they were not going to allow them on their platform. And on the one hand, I understand that there's risks when you're a global company, and blockchain and real money and all this stuff, is it our token securities? And like, there's still these open questions where I guess I maybe am probably, maybe I have some thick skin, or maybe I really am just trying to like see like the other side, but like I can get that. But then also, like, that's not what he said in the article, right? It was like, oh yeah, who knows where the Bitcoin came from? Maybe it was, stolen or exploited or whatever. And it's like, well, isn't that the same with like cash, like a $20 bill in your pocket? Like, you don't know, so it doesn't make sense. And that's, I think, what's frustrating too, is you'd like to sort of have a back and forth where it actually, let's make some, wow, like that's an interesting viewpoint, versus like just criminals or whatever.
Yeah, it's a scam. And at the end of the day, user-owned ecosystems will grow faster and capture more network effects than centrally owned ones, regardless of the industry. It's just
I agree. I think, I can immediately think of some examples that have even gone from one to the other where, I remember using Reddit back in college, and it was like pretty much totally unmoderated. There was not nearly as much shilling, right? It wasn't like, it wasn't really that beneficial at the time. And you just kind of got like the most funny, most interesting, most whatever content sort of right up to the front. And now if you go to Reddit, I honestly haven't been on it in a very long time, but I remember it would be like these centralized opinions, right? Like it was like there was always a theme, basically. And like no matter where you went. And then it just killed it for me. And I think that you can get a lot of the same kinds of ideas from, what we're doing here with these assets. Like I can't necessarily tell you what the Skale token price is going to be in X, at YZ, like days, months, years. I can tell you what we're building though, and what's really cool about it. And maybe that's going to follow, right? In fact, there's a really interesting sort of snippet from Jeff Bezos. I think it was in the maybe like the 2010s. And he was talking about the .com bubble. And he was like, during that time, Amazon, dropped from like, $190 a share to like, I forget what the number was, something insane, like $5 a share, $1 a share, right? And he was like, but we were building like some of the most amazing technology at that time, and the price of whatever doesn't follow the product necessarily. Like we're building the product, and then eventually that product is going to become mature and sort of reach its potential. And that goes for the blockchain industry as a whole. That's where we're going. There's all kinds of different speculation about what this can be used for drugs, or like whatever. Is it a security? All those issues are not going to stand the test of time like the technology itself, and the power of decentralized communities and decentralized technologies.
Okay, so two more questions. One, when we look at I look at your community. So I was on the Discord today, and I'm on your Discord a lot. Like it is like a dynamic, action-packed series of events and things happening. And it's so cool. Like you bring this energy of gaming community management, and like also blockchain, and like just typical blockchain and crypto. And I mean, how do you guys do that? Like, that's one of the, I think the secret, obviously you have a phenomenal gameplay, great technology stack, but the community is also just totally jamming, and you're like, every day there's something interesting happening.
Yeah, especially in the early days when Cryptoblades was kind of at its most simple and you kind of finish really quickly, and then what would you do? You'd go and just like talk about it on Discord or whatever. People would even still call it Discord Blades, because like so much of the actual interaction with other people happens on that platform. But the main thing I think that is our focus when it comes to the community is, for one, like having a presence there. That's really hard to like get right. And sometimes, you know, you have a developer go and say something, and then it's like, oh, like, was that like a promise from a developer? And like, that's like the risk. But then the reward is that people actually get to interact with us and even feel like they have input into this system where they are owning the assets too, which is like in a way almost they sort of own a piece of the pie, basically, right? If you have a Cryptoblades character, then you care what we're doing, because what we're doing is adding more utility and earning potential, et cetera, to your Cryptoblades character. And so that just makes them owners of this alongside us. And we approach that from a lot of times with traditional game community management. It's a lot more about just hyping them up, or just, you know, handling support tickets. And a lot of times people don't go to your communities unless it's because there's a problem that they had and things like that. But it's completely different in a space where people actually co-own it with you. And I think once projects sort of can realize that, or maybe just change their perspective about how they are interacting with these people, then it just really starts to naturally create that really cool back and forth where there's that pride of ownership that people have. There's that sense of being heard, and of course, you know, being able to sort of have that extra added value of talking, you know, directly with myself or one of our other developers.
Awesome. Last part here. How can people learn more? Where can they go? How do people start playing? How do they read more? How do they join the community?
Yeah, so to learn more about us and all the different things that we're up to, you can go to rivetedtechnology.com. If you want to play Cryptoblades, you can go to cryptoblades.io. Our Discord is probably one of the most active areas to get some of your questions answered. That's discord.gg/Cryptoblades. And of course, we're on, you know, a variety of different socials as well, but you can access all that information from the main website. But yeah, so it's been really, really great time having a chat with you here and talking about some of these really cool things happening. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, hey, it's been fun. And I just want to say again, like, you know, we're very mission driven at Skale, meaning the core team, the developer community, the validators, everybody here. And like, we get up every morning saying, how can we help our partners be successful? And it's been just unbelievable to see, you know, not just the gas-free gaming, but the instant finality, fast block times, and like see the technology really be utilized. And when you're building back-end infrastructure, you're kind of behind the scenes, but then you can really feel it when you go and you play a game and you know, or utilize an AMM. So anyways, we're here to support you, and just appreciate just the phenomenal support from your side. And I'm so excited about the next game as well. We'll keep our community updated through the various channels. But thanks again. It was really
awesome. Fun. Yeah, much appreciated. Thanks a lot.
Okay. All right, everybody. That's a wrap. Thanks.